Welcome back, guys. We're here with another episode of the Rowdy Loafers. Yeah, all right. We're doing it. We're releasing this around the Easter time, guys. Yeah. We're having a good time. I'm your host, the impresario, Chris Conradical. Of course, my compadres here, Suit Steve, and the Fireball Bill, the famous Fireball.
How you doing?
Right on. Oh, outstanding.
Good, man. We're coming right off of Easter. How was your Easter, man? You're singing.
Man, singing at church. You know, it was a good Easter.
You can't give us the song?
No, not today. Not today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Gonna mute that.
Good time to spend with the family. I mean, that was what it was all about. Obviously, meaning of Easter. You know, Jesus,
the resurrection,
and ultimately the most important thing. But getting to hang out with your family and just spend some good quality family time was better than anything.
I was doing the same.
Yeah. I
was throwing the football with the nephews and kids and stuff. Trying not to break an ankle.
Oh, that's
all
fun.
That fun stuff.
That was hard to do.
I know. So
it's harder to do now than it was a few years ago.
100%.
My shoulders are all tight there.
Yeah, my oldest son, he played football in high school, and I still am sore from a throw that he threw 6 years ago to me. So I don't recover like I used to. That's for sure.
Man, we got a fun episode. I'm excited about today. We got a lot of really cool stuff. Of course, we're always talking about some Texas history in here. We're going to be talking about some boot making. I got some really cool things I want to show you on some boots. We got the boot of the week, but we got Ryan Cade, man.
That'll be fun.
This is going to be a good one. I mean, super interesting guy. County commissioner, rancher, everything else in between. Runs with our same circle of folks. It's going to be fun, man. Steak, meat. Everybody loves some good beef, right?
That's what's for
it's
dinner.
What's for dinner.
All right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I like it. All right, welcome back, everybody. Here we're at the Rowdy Loafer podcast and the infamous, the famous,
historic
Republic Boot Company. Man, we're gonna be talking about ranching today. We're gonna be talking about a lot of really interesting stuff. I mean, our weeks and we got boot making classes. We got all kinds of stuff going on today.
Whiskey making.
Whiskey, yeah. You make whiskey?
You do.
I know I do.
Yes, he does.
I enhance the whiskey. I don't actually make it. So.
Well, we drink it, and it's pretty damn good. I don't care where it comes from.
By the way, I'm going to shout out to Kenny Webster. He gave us a great
yes, he did.
deal this morning on the Walton and Johnson show. He came in and tried our enhanced whiskey, and he was raving about it. But not just that, but also about the boot shop and those kinds of things. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they just kept going on and on about it, how cool it was, and I think that's what this podcast is really all about.
Yeah, we're trying to bottle it, right?
Bottle it up, bring it to you guys out there in the great unwashed of the world.
The great unwashed of the world. I mean, people want to know, what are we doing inside this place? How do you know all these different people? You're actually making stuff, and that's what he was talking about. These people actually make products. Who does that anymore?
That's right.
In front of your face. You can go back there. You can taste it, smell it, touch it, whole thing.
Whatever it is.
Taste it's kind of weird. I guess you can taste the whiskey.
You can taste it.
Well, Bill was making some boudin a while ago.
Damn right. Yeah. Sitting over there.
Where'd you get that boudin from?
My Fireball rep.
Brought
it in from Louisiana.
Fireball's got a Fireball rep. Who has that?
Roadkill boudin.
I had people talking about our name, right?
Yeah.
They're talking about the Rowdy Loafers. What is that? Where does it come from? I talked about it a little bit on the previous episode, but the Rowdy Loafers were the Texian soldiers that came from the runaway scrape, after all of the horrible stuff that was happening in the West with the Alamo and the Goliad, and they came back down, and we had the Battle of San Jacinto, which we're still in the high holy days of Texas history here in mid-April, and they were just hanging out in Houston doing some pretty cool stuff. But that name is actually inside of this book. So I showed you guys a book last week, which I loved, talking about the German settlers that came over. This one is Texian Macabre by Steve Harden.
Good friend of ours.
Good dude. I mean, just, one of the guys that you want to sit down and just talk to all day long. But he's embodied the history of Houston and early Texas inside this book, Texian Macabre. And he talks about these Rowdy Loafers, right? So, again, that name for us is just kind of cool because it's the interesting folks that were kind of hanging out. They were these, soldiers that were like waiting for the land grants to go out into Texas. And also, by the way, this was here in Houston, the second capital of the Republic of Texas. The first one we can talk about, that's West Columbia,
right.
where our buddy Ryan's from. But yeah, these guys, I mean, it was just a crazy time back in the day. You can imagine. You got dirt streets and just
they
nasty.
knew how to have a good time.
I'm sure they did.
But
yeah.
they fought for what they believed in.
But these were not well-off individuals.
No.
They were
like us.
I mean, they were really struggling to get
Yeah.
along, and they were waiting for that,
Yeah.
to come down, right? So
I mean, they left
Yeah.
their families, they
Yeah.
left everything to come here. They fought. Their friends are being killed in front of them, and then they're trying to get their land grants and kind of go out. So they're just kind of hanging out in Houston. And just a fascinating story. That's what we're going to talk about throughout these different podcasts is all the backstories, right? There's a lot. You can take one of these guys. I was talking about that today. You could go through an entire Yellowstone kind of mini-series on one of these characters, Ben Milam, or the guys that unfortunately got hung in this particular book, Texian Macabre. They're good soldiers, but they just weren't going to tolerate all
Right.
the killing and all the stuff that was kind of going on. So the real, true Wild West. Fascinating.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Cool. So we're going to be talking about ranching today, and I am not a rancher. Could you tell?
I'm not a rancher either. I don't even pretend to be.
You're not a rancher.
no, we're not ranchers.
It's in my blood. It's my blood. But we like to eat meat, right?
We love meat.
I know.
Oh, it's definitely in all three of ours.
Yeah,
It's our,
hey,
in
there we go.
our lineage, our blood,
Yeah,
our
for sure.
bloodline. Absolutely.
My grandfather was actually in Mexico down there, and he was a rancher, and he would talk about the different things. I actually went down there and did a little bit of cowboying, and it's a rough life, man. We glamorize it. It's cool, and we got to admire it as part of our culture and Texas history. But it is not easy to get on there and do all those things, And we were talking about checking for calves or something earlier. I think.
Right.
It does not sound like a fun
man.
task to.
Well,
to
they
undertake.
volunteered me. So.
Yeah.
But I was reading about like the cattle drives, right? Like we're in here, we're inside again the Republic Boot Company stage here, and we make cowboy boots. Cowboy boots were made for cowboys. Cowboys come from cows. It's all tied together, right?
And we make memories.
And we make memories. And but the original cattle, right? They came from the cattle weren't here before 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right? We had buffalo and bears and all this. But the cattle came from Spain initially, right? So he brought stuff to Hispaniola, and then of course the missionaries, as they kind of came through Texas, had a number of these Spanish type of cows, right? And then, and I'm sure Ryan's going to correct us on all this stuff, but it's fascinating because the Longhorn, which is iconic in Texas, of course, was kind of a crossbreed between that Spanish cow and a lot of the eastern cattle that were brought, but they're very hardy. And you could drive them through the tough country, the tough Texas country, and where you needed the cowboy boots and things to protect you as you took your cattle up to the northern markets into Abilene and other places. I just think that's just cool, right?
Oh, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a question for Ryan when he gets here for sure. Because it's really been going around in my head. All the cattle that came from Spain, and he's got these Waygu beef cattle, and doesn't that come from like Japan or something? So how did they talk to each other? What when they got here?
The cows talk to each other?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how did they know what to do?
The cows?
Yeah.
I think it becomes
Something like
feral,
that.
right? I mean, it's like anything else. It kind of goes and they create their own
language.
language, their own breed. I don't know.
Oh, perhaps.
Man, that's pretty deep. I don't know how they're talking. To
We'll
each other.
find
I
Yeah.
really
We'll
want to
find out.
ask him.
But then I think it's fascinating. You have all these different cattle breeds, right? You talk about the Japanese
Yeah.
Wagyu. You talk about the Brahma, I think Indian, and you have all the the Longhorns that were coming up as this kind of crossbreed between the Spanish and the Eastern cows. That and they said, we gotta be hardy in this Texas. I think it was around the Rio Grande Valley where they were first kind of coming up. But even in this area, they were able to kind of breed in the millions, right? So Texas had this real plentiful, wealth of cattle that the markets wanted that, and definitely in the north and stuff like that. That's why the cowboys would drive north.
Well, maybe he can correct us on this, but Texas is still one of the prime beef producers, is it not, in the United States?
Yeah.
It is in my mind.
All right, we're back, guys. Good. How you doing, man? All right?
Outstanding.
Got your ears on?
I do. Glad to be
Oh,
here.
good.
And forward,
man.
good buddy.
We're getting this podcast thing down again. People are asking us to kind of bottle this thing up, so this is coming from you guys. and you want to know more about this, again, come and ask us questions. We got a little chat deal on our website. We're getting a lot of stuff already. They're knowing that we're doing this podcast. They're asking questions about how many
beers I've had.
Fireball. He's gonna be Lone Star Bill over here. Lone Star Bill.
It looks a little bit more like Lone Star Bill today. He's got a Lone Star beer handkerchief too.
Oh man!
There you go.
It's sponsorship or what?
We call it an ascot.
Oh,
that Carbot.
Excuse me.
Friends with Carbot. That's good stuff. So, man, to meet us, by the way, I'm the impresario Chris Conradical, Suit Steve and Fireball Bill. Suit Steve, tell us about suits, man. I mean, you always got the coolest suit on. You made this suit. I don't have a suit on today. It's a little hot today, but this one's cool. This one's different, man.
I always try to come to the podcast with something different because it's just who I am, is what I do. But yeah, Bill's sporting something with,
what's inside
with
there?
Clint Eastwood inside there.
Oh, it's cool, man.
Bang, bang. Clint Eastwood.
What is Clint Eastwood's like? Just I'm trying to keep the old man out.
Right.
Yeah.
His birthday
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah. No, it's great because doing custom, just like custom boots, it allows your personality to really come out. And so, bright orange.
I'm coming out.
Right.
Oh, all right.
Bill is coming out in bright orange.
Correct.
Today.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so
I think about Astros more than him coming out,
but today, I'm thinking a little bit about what's coming up. We've got the Kentucky Derby on the way, and so in my mind, I'm starting to think about seersucker fabric, and
Seersucker.
that is
cool
it's actually comes from the Persian word seer shaker, I believe is how you say it, and because it's in English that means milk and sugar.
Huh.
Which is really interesting because
You're not coming out?
Oh well, hey, you never know. When they weave the fabric, the weft of the fabric is it's grouped together a lot differently than when the other part of the fabric is woven into it. So what that does is it creates kind of a puckering in the cotton fabric, and it makes it very airy and light, so it doesn't touch your skin. So, but there's history behind seersucker because I believe it was somewhere in the early 1900s, 1909, 1910, somewhere in New Orleans, it was kind of created. And originally it was designed as something that was, for people that were in a hot climate and couldn't afford much. But over time, and in fact,
by the way, I love Texas history, right? I'm seeing all these guys, these old photographs, wearing suits,
right,
in the center of Houston in the middle of summer.
And I guarantee
you,
in the early 1900s, mid 20s, 30s, still not air conditioning, there would have been a lot of seersucker used in fabric. It doesn't, when we think of seersucker now, we think of all these stripes. It doesn't have to have stripes.
Yeah, it's the fabric
but
itself.
Pillowcases and robes and
interesting.
All of those things. And in World War II, it actually became it was used for nurses' uniforms because it was so light, breathable, easy to use, and it was red and white, and that's where the candy stripers. That's where that kind of came from.
That's cool.
But over the years, it was it kind of evolved, and the collegiate guys in the 1920s started kind of doing that reverse thing and saying, all right, well, we're going to dress up in this, and then it became a fashionable element. Kentucky Derby kind of took over, and we start thinking about it in springtime as a fun, breathable fabric. Southern gentleman fabric, absolutely.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, but it's interesting that it kind of has a lot of roots in the South, coming from being invented in the New Orleans area in the early 1900s, and then just coming into the southern Texas area, where that obviously we experience that heat. And so it's a lot more breathable.
I mean, do you got to have the stripes though if you have a seersucker?
No, not at all.
Okay,
not
so
at all.
it's any kind of design on the...
Yeah, it's all about the made of the fabric. It's got that kind of puckered feel to it, and that's the milk and the sugar.
That's right. Yeah, you got to come in here. You can make a custom suit inside the boot shop as well. I mean, we have Steve with Blue Fine Menswear inside here as well.
Milk and sugar.
Milk and sugar.
And Lone Star beer.
I like it here. Cheers, guys. Hey, we're gonna... I like talking about seersuckers and all that. I'd like to talk about some beef, man.
I love a good steak, and I understand that this gentleman that is coming on with us raises some of the best beef in the country to make steak with.
Well, I've had it, and I really love it.
I want to nerd out on the technical details.
Yeah, me too.
Right?
I'm actually hoping he
Just
brought
like
some
this-
steak.
Yeah.
Can you bring some steak?
Now, where's the samples?
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about some boots and stuff. I nerd out about that, but I want to nerd out about some steak.
Well, let's bring him on.
Let's bring him on, man. Come on, Ryan Cade. Come on to the stage, man. We're going to take it easy.
you.
Know you, brother.
All right, let's welcome Ryan Cade.
How you doing?
Welcome.
Glad to be here.
Put your ears on. So it's a little difficult. You see, I'm changing my ears out because cowboy hats and stuff, it doesn't really work very well. So we're perfecting this.
Work in progress.
The commissioner is with us.
How you doing?
I'm great. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you.
Thanks for being here.
Where are you from, man? Where? I know you're a Houston guy, but it's south of Houston.
Yeah,
You know,
Brazoria County, 5
County.
generations. That's home for my family for a long time. Super
Really?
proud to be from there.
That's incredible.
Where did the Cade family come from? Why did you guys settle in this particular part of Texas?
Yeah, so my mother's line is actually the 5 generations, and it goes back to Coast Guard and shrimping and shrimp boats and the seafood world, and even as recently as when I was in high school, I remember getting on the big trucks with my grandpa and bringing shrimp and fish and all those things from the Gulf of Mexico up to Houston and dropping them off at restaurants and wholesalers. And so when we
That's
turned,
your mom's side. That was
it is
doing all
mom's
that.
side,
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. In that same area, that same Brazos River
yeah,
area.
right, yeah, Freeport, Lake Jackson, Angleton, Southern Brazoria County. Cool. So when we started doing that with beef,
Home
it
of
was
Buc-ee's.
Surf
That's
and
right.
turf, baby.
That's it, home of Buc-ee's.
Yeah.
Yeah, first little Buc-ee's right down the road from the high school where I went, and
Yeah.
we've been Buc-ee's before Buc-ee's was cool, you know.
That's right. It
Yeah.
was small and it got a lot bigger.
Did
So
you
your
go to
mom-
high school with Bucky?
No,
No.
Beaver's a little older than me. Don and
Okay.
Beaver a few years older than
All
me.
right.
But yeah, definitely local icons, and we're super proud of their success.
I saw they just made one in Alabama. I think they just opened up something
Yeah,
like that.
heard that.
I don't know what I
Also-
think about that. For me, it's kind of a Texas icon. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, that
You should
bothers
just
me
keep
a
it
little
here.
bit.
stay here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nashville as well.
Okay.
Oh,
So
my
they're,
goodness.
Really?
he's
Yeah.
growing.
I haven't heard
They have
that.
Texas stuff inside these Buc-ee's on these other. I don't know. I've never been to Buc-ee's outside of
You
Texas.
can sell Texas items anywhere
Yeah.
in the world.
No doubt.
I'm sure.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
So mom's side was doing the shrimping
Yeah.
stuff in that area for 5 generations.
Yeah.
And dad's side.
Yeah,
was
and
there?
my father's family is from East Texas again. Burkeville, Texas is in Newton County, and go way back there. I was telling you on the phone the other day that I'm part of the Sons Republic of Texas, and when I was going through that process, I found 3 different lines actually, one through my dad's side and one through my mom's side, and there's some really cool history there. I want to read more about it, and maybe next time can be a little more educated, but great-great-grandfather on dad's side was a state rep, in early Texas, and just a lot of really cool things.
I mean, we have such a dynamic history. That's why on this podcast we want to talk about these backstories that people haven't heard. My son right now is in 7th grade. They teach Texas history, but it's real cursory, high level stuff, and it's the backstories that I think are so cool. Like your family coming over, like you want to know, like why did they come here? What were they doing? Were they fighting? Were they runaway scrape and
Sure.
all those things? I mean, they lived hard lives,
You
but it's
bet.
fascinating.
Yeah, you were talking about wearing a suit in downtown Houston in July. I think about mosquitoes, down
Oh,
on the
yeah.
Gulf Coast,
Yeah.
and no off, and the windows were open for your brie, and those guys were tough.
Yeah,
That's right.
yellow
Those guys
fever.
were
I mean, I
tough.
guess
Yeah.
you have all that. I know they had outbreaks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Could you imagine, like, if you got mosquitoes all over you, you can't
Yeah.
get rid of them,
That's
but
right.
they're killing people.
That's right.
I think they knew that the mosquitoes were killing them with
They did.
all
Yes.
that. It's just it's a crazy time, man.
Yeah.
So the cool thing is, like, you were born there, you're still there, you got your family ranch there. Is this the ranch that you're on now? Is this a legacy ranch that you're on?
No, it's not. So this is the ranches we have in Brazoria County now are ranches that my business partner Blake Robertson and I bought. We've kind of worked really hard to buy places, and we've developed some of them. We've kind of flipped some of them, and just kind of to buy bigger ranches, right? Buy land. We believe in land. Think it's a good investment, and obviously the business we're in, we need that land, and so. We've got 2 different places in Brazoria County and the what we call the headquarters, which is my home. So technically 3 places, and we have some country over in Colorado County now that we're putting together, and just really trying to grow our brand.
That's
Yeah.
great.
So-
When did all this start?
Yeah, so early in my career, cows were fun. It was kind of a hobby. Obviously you try to make money. Boy, those cow-calf guys, it's tough to make money just doing it that way. But it wasn't what was putting food on the table, so we kept doing it, and we're having fun. And then about 12 years ago, I found a Wagyu at a restaurant in Houston, and I had my first Wagyu ribeye, and I was like, man,
what is this?
This is different. And I was one of the naysayers. It can't be that different. I mean, it's still beef. It's still a cow. It really can't be that different. Until I tried it, and I was like, oh, but it can.
Something is different here.
And so the neat thing about that was, I kind of decided, you were talking about nerding out on cow stuff. That's what I did. I just became a student of the game, and I started learning about the breed and understanding how raising those animals was different than raising the Angus-based cattle that we all grew up eating and being around. And for about a year, just studied it. And I found a man from Oklahoma, Stigler, Oklahoma, Don Brown, Triangle B Ranch, who is my mentor, and taught me most of what I know about the breed and raising them. And man, RC Ranch was born.
So the process is different as well.
It's very different. Yeah.
So between an Angus and a Wagyu. So
yeah.
I know they come from different places, but I mean, are they eating different things? I mean, are they? So I always think about Wagyu, by the way, like you're massaging them and feeding them wine or
they're
beer.
in cow condos.
Yeah, is Blake out there massaging cows? I mean,
man,
what's going on?
I wish I could tell you he was. That would make a cool story, but
he's out there.
That would make a cool story. No, a lot of that's urban legend. It is genetics, and is every breed kind of has its purpose, or we wouldn't have that breed. We talk a lot about. You guys were talking about Longhorns earlier and how hardy they are. That's their purpose. The meat's not very good,
right?
Which is kind of why the Santa Gertrudis was born, and it was a mixture of some of those. We talk about Angus beef being so great, and the Angus Association has done a lot to really elevate the quality of Angus beef. But there's some parts of the world where they need some Brahman influence so they can be a little hardier. We talk about hybrid vigor. That's a term in the industry, heterosis, something that crossing these animals kind of makes them more hardy, and it adds the areas that this breed may not be as good.
That's how we got Bill, his crossbreed.
Absolutely.
Super hardy.
A lot of heterosis, yeah.
And
between Lone Star and Fireball.
Fireball, yeah.
There you go.
Things.
And I'm sitting here with you guys.
I know, that's right, yeah. You almost killed Ric Flair. And
almost.
Yeah, but you're
Not
still
quite.
alive, very hardy. That's cool. So, again, nerding out on this because I was reading about omega-6, omega-3, low melt temps, all these things.
Yeah.
What is that? Nerd out for just a second.
Yeah,
on
there's
some of that
so many
stuff.
directions we can go, but if you want to go straight to the fat is what makes Wagyu or Japanese cattle different than, again, the Angus-based cattle we all grew up eating. And so it's a very low melting point fat, high in oleic acid. If you held a little ball of ground Wagyu beef in your hand and a ball of some ground chuck that you got at the grocery store, this one would start melting. And that low melting point fat is the oleic acid and some other components that make it really rich and buttery and make it so different. Dr. Stephen Smith, Texas A&M, has done some really cool research on the health benefits of Wagyu, and a lot of those guys are likening the fat in Wagyu more to the fat in salmon than the fat that's in, again, the Angus-based cattle we all grew up eating, because everything that we grew up eating had some Angus influence. That breed has just been the giant in our country for a long, long time. Especially in the Midwest where so much of the beef cattle come from. And again, our industry's changing. We've got to really stop focusing on as much on size and hybrid vigor and some of those things and start focusing on what the consumer wants, which is quality. And so that's, I'm sure, something we can talk about later, but this business has to evolve for it to stay relevant.
Do you feed it the same thing as an Angus? I mean, is it eating corn and?
Yeah, mostly. It's a little different. It's really, the thing is longer, right? So commercial cattle producers, they, just like us, the cow-calf guy weans it, then they go background it, and they grow it to, 800 pounds, 850 pounds, and then at that point it goes into a feedlot environment, and those guys are going to feed them for, let's say, 210 days. And they just know that this percentage of them are going to be prime, this percentage are going to be choice, this percentage are going to be select. And they're trying to push those numbers up a little bit if they can through genetics, but they're basing their business model on, kind of those numbers, and they're just going to take what they get. Where with us, if all of them don't hit a certain IMF, a marbling level, intramuscular fat, they don't get our brand.
IMF.
Intramuscular fat,
Yeah, I was reading about IMF and BMS.
Yeah.
What's the difference there?
Well, yeah, so I guess it's terminology, right? So IMF is the accepted American term for intramuscular fat, and that is how marbling is graded. If it has a percentage, it's percent IMF, that's how you determine, hey, it's 12%, it's not going to fit our box. So 12% is prime.
I'm more than 12%.
Yes, you are. You're not going to fit that box.
I'm not going to fit that box.
Yeah, that's right. We like to marble heavy around there. As you can tell,
he's marbled.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different, I guess it's got looking at EPDs or expected progeny differences, these stats we use to determine how we're going to breed animals. It looks like the back of a baseball card. There's literally a bunch of different stats from IMF to milking ability to weaning weights to harvest weights.
I'm assuming that's how you got started. Is you basically looked at the back of a baseball card for some cattle and said I need this one as my right fielder and this one as and you brought them together and you started your own process.
That analogy works. That analogy actually works fairly well.
Yeah.
It really does. And so kind of going back to Wagyu, from the mid 80s to the mid 90s, we imported this breed from Japan.
Just the United States or
United States and Australia mainly. There's some other countries that are into it now, but I'm mainly talking about the American importation. But the important part is in 1996-ish, Japan declared it a national treasure and said no more. And so no one has been able to export Wagyu genetics from Japan since then. And so kind of the joke in the breed is the family tree doesn't have a lot of branches. And so we have to be very, very careful how we breed these animals and very selective. There's
basically you breed it out of them.
Yeah, so you can get two inbred.
That happened to me.
Some of those things. Yeah.
Hey, I resemble that remark.
I'm still here.
So, but yeah, so three main lines that have kind of different traits, and we're always a sandwich breeding process is what we call it, between the Shamani lines and Kadaka lines and Tajima lines, and you just want to make sure that if you breed just for marbling too much, you're going to have bad mothers. They're not going to be able to make good milk. They're not going to have good calves, right?
Wow.
Okay.
So you've got to think about both sides, and then you can get to where your cattle are smaller.
So there's a balance.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's not, it's not Pawpaw's Ranch anymore, and that's something that we have to, as an industry, just had a chance to meet with about 50 ag agents from across the state of Texas and tell them about our program. And one of the things I said was go home and look your ranchers in the eyes and say, it's not 1965 anymore. It's not 1985 anymore. You've got to look down the road what the consumer wants. And the consumer doesn't care how pretty your bull is. He's never going to see your bull. He doesn't care about if you have the biggest bull in the county. He doesn't care about that. They want high quality beef raised a certain way, and that's the future of our business. And those people that can't look that in the eye and be prepared to face it are going to go away.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, they're going to go away.
Earlier you talked about genetics and crossbreeding. Time frame, is that like what kind of a period of time are we talking about with all that?
Yeah, so I think when we breed an animal, whether we do it natural service or make an embryo through embryo transfer, which we can talk about too, a 9-month gestation. Okay. And then that calf is born, and we wean those calves between 6 and 7 months. So you have a 6 or 7 month, weanling that we then go to a grow yard or a background kind of place, and that is just grass and a little bit of feed. The animal's framing out and growing. We're not pouring the pounds to it yet, just kind of letting the animal grow up and frame out. And then at 12 or 13 months, we go to that grow yard and we look at them and we assess them and say, hey, those heifers there, I want to bring them home, and they're going to be part of the herd. We're going to make cows out of them. Or, hey, those, we're going to go to the feed yard. We feed a lot of heifers. They feed great. And the same thing with the bulls. Man, I want those 5 stay intact. Those are going to be bulls. The rest of them, let's cut them, and let's send them to the feed yard. And so that's when the big decision's made. And then everything goes to the feed yard that's going to go to the feed yard. And then everything that's going to come home is going to come home. We give those heifers, basically 1 calendar year, 2 breeding cycles to breed up, and if they don't, then they go right back to the feed yard with with the rest of them. So that timeline, to where we're at now is 13 months. Then they go into the feed yard environment for 300 to 365 days. Okay. Remember, we were talking about 210 with kind of commodity beef guys. They just build that into their business model and take what they get. We're going to put some more days on feed on them, because if they don't hit that level of IMF that we're expecting, they don't fit our box. So we're just going to kind of sell them off on the side to butcher shop. It's good beef, but it's not what our program's looking for.
So that extra 3-4 months that you're putting on them is allowing them to marble that beef.
It is. So Shogo Takeda was one of the original importers and kind of the mentor of my mentor. Right. Mr. Takeda actually just passed away a couple weeks ago, but he had kind of 3 things. Obviously, genetics is first, and then their feeding program, and then maturity. And so rather than just a certain number of days, he wants those cattle to get to a certain age. And I think it makes sense, right? We're all talking about marbling. We all marble better now than we did as adolescents, right? And so letting those animals mature a little bit, you're giving yourself a better chance to get an animal that's going to marble to the level that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Right on.
You know, I guess kind of jumping back a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
did your family, were they ranchers?
Yeah,
or was
always-
this just you that wanted to do
we
that?
always had cows, but it was always
Yeah.
second fiddle. It's just you have land, you have cows, right? Ag
Yeah.
exemption, or love to play cowboy and kind of
exactly.
all that stuff. And so
It wasn't a serious deal like it is now.
no.
Yeah.
You know, it became a real business when Blake and I just decided that, hey, we've got cows on our ranch and we love that part of it, but now we can really make a business out of it.
That's
you know?
cool.
And our
Especially in
big
Houston,
company.
I mean, we have such a great food scene here. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people that want some really good.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
with this. I was like, oh my God, Kobe beef. What is this?
Yeah.
It definitely has a different deal. And I was reading your deal. Kobe beef. People that might not understand the differences of Wagyu. Can you explain just a little bit of those kind of?
Yeah. So
specialty deals?
Wagyu is the breed of cattle, and Kobe is like bourbon or champagne. For it to really be Kobe, it has to be Wagyu that was born in the Kobe region of Japan, and born and harvested in the Kobe region of Japan.
Yeah.
So a lot of times on menus around in the U.S., you'll see something that says American Kobe or Texas Kobe. It's really mismarketing. It's not Kobe unless it's born and harvested in the Kobe region of Japan. It's American Wagyu. It's Texas Wagyu, and that's the breed.
Yeah.
So we're working really hard as a breed to educate people that that's the word. That's the brand we're building together. Not Kobe.
From a marketing perspective, are there rules and regulations? We were kind of talking amongst ourselves earlier about that, as far as when you label something Texas Wagyu. What are the rules and regulations and
Kinda like a bourbon.
stipulations?
How do you-
How do you
You check
tell us
the
about the back
genetics,
of that
yeah.
package?
Great question.
You
So
know.
it's kind of two things. We're a Go Texan brand, and to be a Go Texan brand, there are some things through the Texas Department of Agriculture we had to prove up that we are a Texas brand.
Right.
But the Wagyu piece of it, currently, for it to get a Wagyu label, it has to only be 50% Wagyu. So you can take a Wagyu bull and cross it with anything else, and technically that can be Wagyu. A lot of people have fought for that for a long time because that was the original reason that Wagyu bulls were brought from Japan to the United States, was to improve the carcass quality of American cattle. But for those of us that breed full-blood Wagyu, and we have some percentage Wagyu too, but we are a full-blood operation. There's a huge difference in the eating experience of a full-blood Wagyu steak versus a Wagyu bull crossed with some old cow in somebody's pasture.
Wow.
And it's also more expensive, and
Sure.
so we're fighting for some sort of recognition, some sort of, maybe it's a different brand. I'm not trying to take anything away from the guys that are raising percentage animals, but if I'm going to raise a full-blood Wagyu, I want a designation for that, and I
It should
think that
be.
it will be valuable. And I think that it
So
will,
there's not currently
no.
a.
If it's
oh.
50% Wagyu or 100% Wagyu,
They
it
can
has
call
the
it
same
Wagyu.
It says Wagyu.
Wagyu label.
They just have to know the
And-
RC Ranch has 100%, right?
Yeah, and so that's when we have to do our job of explaining, genetics and all that. But I think more importantly, there are people that go to a restaurant and they try a Wagyu steak and they're like, it really wasn't all that different. And it's because half of that animal wasn't Wagyu.
Right.
And you have no idea what it was, And so, again, back to genetics. Both sides of that genetic equation, add up to make what that ribeye turned out to be.
It's a mutt.
So that's
Do you,
right.
do you prepare it the same way? I mean, does it look the same? I mean, for those that have never eaten a Wagyu steak, I mean, they can get it from you guys. I know we can talk about where to get this, but
Sure.
you can take it, sear it, and it's the same kind of like time and all that. I'm
Yeah.
thinking everything melts inside because of the low
Yeah.
melting temperature.
Yeah, no, we believe in really hot sear and don't go past medium rare.
Yeah.
I always tell people the hottest surface you have, whether that's an iron skillet in your kitchen, or I prefer we have a fire pit on the back porch, get that sucker roaring, and the hottest surface you have, and just sear the crap out of it really good on both sides, and then pull it off and just kind of let it get to that medium
Don't
rare.
grill
internal
it, but
temp.
really sear it. Just
Sear
get
it.
it good.
Yeah. So
Because
sear
it'll
that
cook
flavor in.
inside when you take it off.
Yeah, most people that I know like a medium rare, kind of middle, anyways. But I tell people all the time, if you're going to cook it past medium, don't buy Wagyu. Please don't buy.
A waste
it.
of money.
It is, because that intramuscular fat is what you're buying.
Yeah, it's
But when you're
taste,
cooking
yeah.
it past medium, it's all gone anyway. So
Yeah,
go to
right.
Western Sizzler. Go to get something on sale. I mean, please do not destroy my. Took me 3 years to
I
get
know.
you that
Well,
steak.
and that's what I was going to say is
Yeah.
when you said that statistic about that, you an Angus, you got them in the feedlot for 210 days, and it's 300 to 365 for your beef.
Yeah.
I mean, that right there says it's almost twice as expensive just to raise and feed that animal as it is. So on economies of scale, you thousands of cattle, that's expensive.
Sure
so I mean, it makes sense why it even without the genetics, just the cost of raising that animal is a lot higher.
You bet. And you said something else I want to touch on. The current model forever, it was 3% of cattle harvested graded prime.
Right.
60, low 60s, graded choice. The rest were select and no roll and whatnot. That number's gone up to close to 10% of all animals harvested grade prime. And I was at a convention 2 years ago where the man from Cargill, largest packer in, I don't know, definitely the country, maybe the world, stood up there and gave the Wagyu breed credit for that big swing and the influence that Wagyu's had on, beef and in general. Has pulled those carcass qualities up. So beef is getting better. People's expectations are getting higher. And I think people are finally seeing, okay, I need to focus on genetics. And so the breed has done a great job overall. And so I don't want to discount what people are doing. And it is true, the first bulls that were brought over, their purpose was to increase carcass quality in the cattle that were already here.
Yeah.
And it's done that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So how can we get this stuff?
I was supposed to say wholesale, retail. What's your
is it
process
in restaurants?
Yeah,
where
we got.
Yeah. Do I kind of go to a restaurant and get it, or is it just a home deal?
Yeah, no. So we'll sell it to you any way you'll buy it. We've got 3 great wholesale distributors. Jake's was our first one. Benny Keith and Performance Food Groups are all selling to restaurants around the state. Actually, all the way to Florida. We've got a restaurant in 38, Grace Pizza down in 38.
My
Florida.
wife keeps saying go to 38.
Yes,
Really? It's down by Destin.
Yeah, you bet. Beautiful
cool.
place.
Awesome.
Go check out Grace Pizza.
Last night we were out trying to find a place to eat, and we went to the farmer's market.
Actually,
cool.
I went to Grace Pizza in Alvin, Texas.
Yeah,
Same thing.
Same people. Yeah,
Oh,
Adrian
wow.
Embry, great
Yeah, I
friend.
saw you guys on the wall there. Now it's all coming back to me.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, no, great friend, great people. They've got several concepts. They're one of our we have a lot of great customers. Our customers have become friends, and I think that kind of it speaks to the kind of people we like to do business with, and it's a we don't want to sell them a box of beef today. We want to develop a relationship where they're buying from us for years. But so a lot of restaurants have it, and it changes a lot. And I'll miss somebody if I start spitting out names. But there's a lot of great restaurants around the city buying our product, from burgers all the way to ribeyes. But we have our new butcher shop, USDA inspected butcher shop here in the Heights on Airline at the old Houston Farmers Market. December was a year for us. December 14th, I believe it was a year. And so you can go in there, and it's a fully custom butcher shop. If you don't see what you want, you can talk to Easton or McKenna or one of our great team members, and they'll get it for you and get you hooked up. On top of that, we think that our e-commerce business has a lot of runway, a lot of opportunity to grow, and that's something we're going to focus on this year.
You can just buy a steak.
That's
Click
right.
on the button,
That's
buy
right.
a steak. Right.
I think if you spend $200, shipping's free. So I think it's a way that people are going to shop in the future, and so we're going to take e-commerce super serious. One more really fun one is that about almost 2 years ago now, we got our beef jerky product into HEB, and so right now we're in 256, I believe it is, HEBs. We're in specs, and rolling that out to some other places here.
Beef jerky.
We need beef jerky here.
Yeah, we can. Sure
That's a
make
Bregman
that.
deal, right?
Yeah.
Well, so we have 5 flavors. One of them is a collaboration with Alex Bregman, who's become a great friend of our brand and super cool guy. He's a great baseball player, but an even better dude. And so we do have the Bregman jerky, and it's a real popular one, and it's one of our 5 flavors, and we're excited to have that
I had
partnership.
the Breggy bomb, and I was shaking it. That's why they won the World Series.
Come
There you
here
go.
soon.
There you go.
Over here soon.
We're gonna have some jerky here.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's really right down the street. We can get you all you want,
Yeah.
buddy. Appreciate your interest. But yeah, that's how you buy from us. All those different places, and we appreciate the support. And I mean, it is truly a labor of love. You guys were talking about ranching earlier. It's everybody loves to watch Yellowstone, but it's not always that glamorous.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's
you
go out there and try. It's like, oh,
yeah, cows don't get out, and at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's 3 o'clock in the morning every single time. And,
But do you have a train station?
no, yeah, I won't tell you about that.
You're talking about Blake. I mean,
I
how
just
did you
met
guys
you.
become friends? What's the family connection and all
Yeah,
that
so
kind of stuff?
my mom and Blake's mom taught school together before we were born, and I mean, just lifelong friends. Blake's mom and dad are like godparents to me, and that relationship's evolved, and as I got out of college, I'm 5 years older than Blake, got out of college. Blake's dad kind of became a business mentor, and some of the first real estate deals I did, he supported me and helped me on. And at one point, he was like, "Okay, I'm ready to be done. You and Blake figure this out, and I'll stand over here and be available to help and mentor." And his dad, Chuck's one of the biggest mentors in my life, and so that relationship has evolved. And now Blake and I are partners, and learning a lot. We learned a lot watching Chuck and his partner do the things they did, and so now we're trying to build a cool brand like they did for years.
The brand's definitely
you're living a good life because Blake looks older than you.
Oh my God! I hope millions of people here watch this podcast for that very reason. Right there. For that very reason, I love it.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Can you make a boot out of Waygu, by the way?
Ooh.
That's the next thing. Yeah, your next
Wagyu
custom
boots.
Next,
Nice.
That's going to be the
I
next
like the
big
way you're
thing.
going with
Yeah, I
that.
know. I'm
Yeah,
kind of.
I like the way you're
kind
going
of
with that.
because we've made some cowhide boots and they're pretty cool. We
Oh,
some
absolutely.
Wagyu boots.
Yeah. Hey, let's
Cool.
figure it out. Sounds like
Good.
a lot of fun.
Cool.
Sounds like a lot of
Well,
fun.
we come to the part we're going to talk about some boots real quick. So
Okay.
you can ask us questions as well, but we
Yeah.
got our boot of the week are going to be these bad boys, right? And the weird thing is, this was
is
not planned.
Super weird.
We talk about the center of the universe. The reason we're doing this podcast is that we have so many synergies and weird stuff happens. I mean, there was like 5 today,
Yes.
right? I mean, we talk about
Totally.
Maribou Lamar.
Between yesterday and
I'm
today.
talking about the second president of Texas, my favorite. He's at his gravesite. My buddy over here, Scott, man. I was like, what in the world? How's this even pop? This kind of stuff. Last night, we talked on the phone, and I see him at this the Ryan Big and Bourbon kind of kickoff thing with
Right.
our good friends.
At the Cowboy Surfer.
And Lance Welch, and so we had Lance Welch's boots ready to go. So he's a good friend of ours too. We've made some really cool. He's a big dude, right?
Yeah.
So he's got the big old boot here, Buckaroo style with the wool wells on it, and the full quill ostrich black cherry. So
That's the Welch.
I may have
Yeah.
to break those in for him.
got some scuffs on there, man. But we got them all nice and.
Yeah, I love
Take
that.
care.
I love that black cherry. It's
That's
it's
got-
a very rich color. Love it.
Got the red kind of coming
Yep.
through the quills a little bit of the marbling through the marbling. I guess.
Yeah, there you go.
Marbling.
It is.
That
I
works.
mean the grain structure of the cherry coming through the black there, but just a good style as well. And one of the things I wanted to kind of show is something that we're talking about designing boots and kind of nerding out on beef and all that. We nerd out on boots on this show for sure.
Well, there's different
So-
kinds of beef. There's different kinds of leather.
Yeah, and we talk in beef and different kinds of leather, as Bill said. This is an insole and an outsole. So we get specially tanned material that we utilize that's real soft and supple. But the insole looks like the outsole, but it's different. There's different chemicals that go into the tanning process of this. And we actually use different parts of the animal as well. So we use prime soles. When you get an insole of it, you want to have something that's softer from the belly of the animal, which allows your foot to compress down and actually conform down. So over time, you can feel your toe pad.
Kind of like a baseball glove.
Cool stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it just becomes nice
Yeah.
and supple. As soon as you wear it and you break it in, your foot drops down the side. So initially, it's hard and stiff because there's no synthetics. Because nowadays people use a lot of synthetics
Yep.
in boots, but a good boot has a good insole, and that's what we use here. This is much harder, which allows it to not have a hole in it, wear out over a couple of years or something like that. So still the same process, but we use the shoulder, which has different fiber grains, which makes it a lot stronger. So every aspect of this, I'll show you different clips of how we actually fillet welt, channel welt these things open and use it on the insole as well. But I just thought that was cool. I mean, just little things like that.
It
I
is.
mean, people have no idea. Different processes, different chemicals, different parts of the animal for making
Different parts of the boot.
Different purposes.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's right.
cool.
Very good.
All right, we have a lot of really cool guests coming up. I mean, now that people are realizing that we're doing this, the list is growing. So send us your questions. We've got a lot of stuff kind of coming in. We'll answer all those questions on the next upcoming episodes. We'll be releasing these over the next few months. And it's been a good time, man.
Oh, it's always great.
Thank
Thank
you,
you for
Ryan.
having us.
Thanks for
Thank
joining
you
us.
for being here.
Yeah.
100%.
You bet. If I could, www.r-cranch.com is the website for anybody that wants to buy online.
One more time.
www.r-cranch.com. You guys, R-bar-C in the ranch world is R-bar-C, but
Perfect.
that loses a lot of people. So
Yeah.
r-cranch.com.
Love it.
Love
So,
it. Yep.
Thank you
Thank you.
guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate you very
Appreciate
much.
it. Ryan Cade here, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
All right.